So when we're talking about an awakening or a spiritual awakening, we're talking about the individual awakening from what may seem to be a dream, although some could call it a nightmare, but it's awakening from this everyday self, this sense of somebody that you've been carrying around with you. And what begins to happen is this concept in your mind of who you are, and this concept in your mind of who other people are, puts you in kind of a dream of life, not actually in life, because when you're thinking about life or thinking or have a concept of who you are, who somebody else is, you're not experiencing your life or those people. You're experiencing your thoughts about them. And so a spiritual awakening could be said to be the experience or the phenomena where you wake up and realize that you are not who you thought you were. And it's true. You're not who you thought you were. It's just who you thought you were. Sounds very profoundly simple, but when you look at it, you'll see that's really the way to articulate it. So this spiritual awakening, it's just tagged as spiritual awakening because once you go from identified in the physical third density world of thinking and figuring and thinking and figuring and thinking, and then now coming into letting go of the thinking, so much of the thinkingness, and moving into more of the feelingness, that's the transition moving into the spiritual journey. We're now dwelling in or spending our time with our attention being in the non-physical aspects of ourselves. And we start to, as we begin to practice from this awakening, starting to look at life from the non-physical energetic level, things begin to move faster, things begin to happen with much less effort. Because what we're actually doing is we're transitioning from a world or a life where we are attempting to overcome resistance in the physical world with effort in order to get things that we think that we want. And we're now changing that to, I realize that all these things that I want them because I think I'm going to feel good when I get them. And then we now notice I'm going to have to find a way to feel good first to get those things. It's not a derivative of how hard I work. And a lot of times people have problems or bump into something in this area because number one, they've been working hard their whole life, so they don't want to invalidate all the hard work they did to achieve the things they did. And this, by no means or stretch of the imagination, is an attempt to invalidate hard work. It's just an option of another way that you can view this that allows more things to occur with less effort. So the idea is you can accumulate a lot of things with a lot of effort, but at the end of the day, you're going to be pretty exhausted and unfulfilled even when you get them. And with this, it's more of a playful creation. It's more of a creating a magic show from the alchemist or the chemistry of your thoughts and feelings rising to a more elevated level. Because the creation, the cycle creation, is going to happen just like this. You're going to experience some things in your life which we're calling contrast. The moment you experience that contrast, you ask for a larger non-physical version of yourself that has the new things that you've asked for. Now, once that takes place, you either start that pilgrimage or that journey towards feeling like the person who has the things you want, or you stay where you're at and you begin to complain and you begin to have problems with other things and circumstances that are, you think, stopping you from becoming who you want to be. You begin to find yourself feeling heavier and more stuck. And the reason that is because you've just asked for a bigger, larger, happier version of yourself. And instead of starting to feel like that person, and move the barriers and the things that you're doing with your mind that are creating the resistance that won't let you pilgrimage to where you want to go, you stay and complain, or you stay and keep the sameness going on there. And the way you can tell if you're improving and you're doing good in this game is if you start feeling better. And you don't need to check anybody. You don't need to, you don't need artificial intelligence or chat GPT to let you know that you're feeling better. You don't need to ask chat, am I feeling better now from starting the spiritual work? No, you just know whether you're feeling better or not. And the reason that's so significant is because we want you to completely let go, and you're not going to do it at first real fast. We want you to let go of how you think you're going to make things happen. to starting to experience the feeling of things happening. And yes, there's going to be action as you're going, but what we're really saying is you do take action, but you don't take action from an emotional condition that doesn't match the feeling that you want to have. That's where the exhaustion happens, is you feel uncertain or unsure about this thing that you want to be involved in, and then you go take a bunch of action to try to force it into happening for yourself, and they all end in nightmares and disasters. They don't work. So what we're saying is spend some more time in the feeling aspect. Spend some more time quieting down. Spend some more time inquiring into your imagination and experiencing yourself. You know, the etymology or the origin of the word imagination, you go look up this word and trace back where this word came. It's really, really beautiful. Back in the Latin, imagination is to picture oneself. To picture oneself, right? So the invitation here on this game that we're playing of, me creating the life that I desire is really starting to picture yourself in your imagination, experiencing the feeling of having these things that you want. That's the transition we're making here from third density to fourth density, from having a spiritual awakening, from you're awakening from this everyday self that you have thought that you were. You're awakening from the everyday somebody else who you thought that you were. You're awakening from these mega structures in your mind of how you've been describing and explaining with language how the world is through your thoughts. And when you wake up to this and that gets yanked out from underneath you, now in this transition of awakening of the spiritual journey or awakening from the everyday self, now you're experiencing the dark night of the soul. Because when we're transitioning or experiencing the dark night of the soul, what that is all of these mental constructs of the way that I thought life and my friend's life and my mom and my lover and my kids and all of that stuff it's starting to dissolve. And so everything that you thought was a certain way now doesn't seem to be that way. And the most prevalent fear that I experience people have when they find themselves here is fear. Fear. Yeah. And it makes sense that it would be scary, because all the way up until one moment you were living that life was this certain kind of way, and you were able to describe how life worked and who you were and who other people were, none of which was anything more than just a production of your mind, right? But now one moment you're living like everything is clear and understandable, and in the next minute you have a cognition, more like a horrifying recognition that all of that stuff was just in your mind and it's not true. And there's a real powerful panic that sets in. And so normally when someone shows up in that condition, the first thing to do is just stabilize them by letting them know, yeah, this is a real common thing that happens. This isn't unique to you. It's just unique to you this lifetime now. And you probably haven't seen, or maybe you've seen other people go through it, but this is actually really good news, because this is moving you now towards your potential of what you came here to experience as a human being. Before, when you were stuck in your head on how things were, you didn't really have a shot. So first of all, it might sound weird, but I tell them, congratulations for breaking through that first barrier, right? Right? So now they have a chance. So what seemed to be so horrifically horrible, in fact, this has seemed to be the most scary moment of my existence up till now, and I never would have thought it was the most beautiful thing that could have ever happened to me. But as we start to show how to meander your way out of this condition that you found yourself in, more gets revealed to you about yourself. More becomes more clear. More things on how things happened in the past makes more sense. Why certain people left and more certain people came into your life starts to make sense. All of it called your life now starts to become clear, and it starts to become more understanding. The reason it's so important to understand this is because now how you're feeling and starting to think is starting to move in a more positive direction for you. And now law of attraction, this golden law, this most predictable, reliable law, now instead of feeding you more bad things that you were thinking and feeling, Now that you're feeling better and your stream of life is starting to thaw and open up and flow, now law of attraction starts to feel more like an ally for you. And it starts bringing you more of those things that you've been wanting and asking for. And by the way, it gets faster and more and faster and more and faster and more. And so that's the transition that we're looking to make with this spiritual awakening, or this awakening from the everyday self. It's a real beautiful, beautiful, beautiful milestone or opportunity for a human being who's actually realizing now that they came here to discover more of who they are. And wow, this one's really going to expose a lot of who I am to me. So it's a really great thing when it's an opportunity, but if you don't have any context for that, it can be real horrifying. I'm going to tell you from firsthand experience. It was like, not only did the rug get pulled out from under me, I felt like a crab who I just outgrown my shell and it fell off, and I was real vulnerable. I felt really exposed. All of the things in my mind that I used to do to protect myself and defend myself, like all of this stuff was all falling off and falling off and falling off. And then there would be moments where I felt so vulnerable. Like I would go to the grocery store and I'd be ready to get out of the car, and I'm going to go shop, and I'm just going to kind of bring my life into a little semblance here. And then I would look to my left and I'd see a woman putting a baby from the stroller into the car seat. And I would just emphatically start crying, just noticing this woman caring for this being, for this little baby here, and the care and the delicateness and the concern for its well-being. And like, so then now I'm having all these emotional releases, and I'm feeling better when I'm releasing all these emotions, but I am not used to feeling this way. So that's scaring me too. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'll call my friend George, and I'll be like, shit, George doesn't know anything about this. He's going to think I'm weird. So there's also like a recognizing when you wake up from this everyday self, you look around and the people that you normally talk to, this isn't a real prevalent conversation for them. In fact, it seems a little weird to them, a little weird. So whatever condition you find yourself in, I want to let you know from my own experience and from well over 1,000 people that I've worked with this lifetime. It's a crummy feeling to not feel good. When you don't feel good, you got one real problem, and it kind of tarnishes, or it clouds, or it kind of invades and kind of dampens and kind of ruins everything that you're experiencing in life. You can't create new concepts and new stuff from there. Life is just kind of a bummer. And it's not a conversation that you really have a bunch of outlets to speak about. It's just you feel crummy, and then you spend time trying to just kind of hold on to your crumminess. The problem with that is you can't ever handle the crumminess by doing something different and more. The only way you're going to handle the crumminess is by discovering what the source of the crumminess is and then how to handle it. That's why I'm inviting you to join the Skool community, because in the Skool community, you're going to get a course full of modules where you're going to see me talking about these specific component parts of the law of manifestation, law of attraction, law of creation, whatever you want to call it. You're going to watch those videos. You're going to understand that this course is encapsulated in such a way that you can fully have an experience of yourself knowing what to do now. You can also download a free copy of my book, Think It, Feel It, Have It, The Keys to Creation. Just a quick blurb about that book. In there, I talk about the magnetic force, the magnetic field of the heart, the electromagnetic field of the heart, 5,000 times more powerful than the electromagnetic field of the mind. That's going to start to tell you something about how we're going from here to down into here. Also, over the last 15, 20 years, I've gathered what are the sources and the main causes of the resistance that we create for ourselves. I'm going to give you that as well. So you also, as you move and you start doing this work, you start to realize, if I don't keep in this conversation or stay with this work, I start to sink back into these old ways of being, or old thought patterns, or old conditioning, or old programming. So what I've done is I've now incorporated a weekly phone call that keeps you in this conversation. It's not the same as going to church, but the frequency of it and the experience of it is going to be the same. And that is, you're going to gather more knowledge, and you're going to release some more resistance and experience more relief. And lastly, this is a whole community. I think right now there's a couple hundred people in the Skool community. This is a whole community of like-minded people, people like you. You can start to interact with people in the group and start to find out more as you're moving along. And lastly, if this is something that's resonating for you and you're ready to really keep going and really take this on in a real concerted, directed, focused manner, there's programs where you and me can work together one-on-one. So let's get moving. Like, no kidding. Let's start moving in the direction that you want to and have you start feeling better and start experiencing things that you want to experience in your life. Book a one-on-one call with me. And in that call, I'm going to lay this out for you really, really clear in such a way that at the end of the call, you're going to understand that there is a way that you can go about getting yourself to be able to intentionally create things for yourself and for your life, and that how you've been doing it isn't this way. And I'm going to give you that on this phone call. Whether you choose to work with me further, that's a completely different conversation. And if that's something that comes up for you, we'll work that out at the time. But right now, let's just get in touch and let's let you see just how this actually works, which I'm telling you, you're going to find is different than how you've been holding it. And I'm really looking forward to connecting with you and talking with you.